Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswarji, beloved Guru, Paramahansa Yoganandaji, saints of all religions, we humbly bow to you all. Divine Mother, we deeply thank you again and again for your joyous presence in our lives. Help us to be your humble instruments, ever willing, always enthusiastic, to share your grace with all who cross our path and with all souls. Om Shanti. This morning, we'll start with our fire ceremony, chanting the Gayatri and the Mahamrityunjaya mantras.
Om Bhurvuvah Swah Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Margo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swah Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swah Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swah Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swah Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swah Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swah Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivartanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat swaha. Om Triyambakam Yajamahe Sagandhim Pushtivardhanam Purvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat swaha. Om Triyambakam Yajamahe Sagandhim Pushtivardhanam Purvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat swaha. Om Triyambakam Yajamahe Sagandhim Pushtivardhanam Purvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat swaha. Om Triyambakam Yajamahe Sagandhim Pushtivardhanam Purvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat swaha. Om Triyambakam Yajamahe Sagandhim Pushtivardhanam Purvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat swaha. Om Triyambakam Yajamahe Sagandhim Pushtivardhanam Purvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat swaha. I have a love who's far away, far away, far away. I have a love who's far away, farther away than the stars. Mother, you've stolen my heart away, heart away, heart away. Mother, you've stolen my heart away, farther away than the stars. Keep me not bound here, teach me to fly, far from earth's madness, free ere I die. Keep me not bound, Mom, teach me to fly, farther away than the stars. There's nothing here nearly so dear, nearly so dear, nearly so dear. Mother, I know your love's ever near, though farther away than the stars. From the depths of slumber as I ascend the spiral stairways of wakefulness, I will whisper, whisper, God, God, God. I'll walk the food, and when I break my fast of nightly separation from thee, I will taste thee and mentally say, God, God, God. Where I go, the spotlight of my mind will ever keep turning on me. And in the battle din of activity, my silent war cry will be God, God, God. When boisterous storms of trial shriek, and when worries howl at me, I will drown their noises loudly chanting, God, God, God. When my mind weaves dreams with threads of memories, on that magic cloth will I emboss God, God, God. Every night in time of deepest sleep, when my peace dreams and calls, joy, joy, my joy comes singing evermore. God, God, God. In waking, eating, working, dreaming, sleeping, serving, meditating, chanting, divinely loving, my soul will constantly hum, unheard by any God, God.
Now, in preparation for meditation, let's inhale, tense, and vibrate our bodies. Throw the breath out. Again, inhale, tense, and vibrate. Throw the breath out. And one last time. Tense and vibrate. Throw the breath out. Now let's offer the natural love of the heart awakened through chanting up to the point between the eyebrows. Calling to God there, reveal thyself. Reveal thyself. Feeling the growing response in our hearts. We'll meditate now for about 10 minutes. Okay. Well, before we begin with our readings, last year and this year too have been very important for so many of us and around the world. Last year was, of course, the 50th anniversary of the starting of Yogananda's dream, the first World Brotherhood colony, as he called them, at Ananda Village. And so we had a wonderful celebration there and dedicated a temple that we have been visualizing for a long, long time, and it came out absolutely beautiful. And this year, 220, is also very, very important, as this is the year, actually next month in August, when Yogananda sailed from India to America. And it wasn't an easy time because it was right after the First World War. And it looked in the beginning, when he went to the passport office, that he was not going to be granted a passport. The man said basically it was impossible. So as we read in the autobiography of a yogi, Master said that in fairly miraculous ways, he was able to get a passport. And he took the first passenger ship to the city of Sparta from India, 2-month voyage to Boston. And so I wanted to first read from Whispers, and then we'll read from the autobiography of a yogi, the chapter on him going to America. This reading is entitled, May the Niagara of my joys inundate all hearts. May the Niagara Falls of my heart's joy pour unceasingly upon all I meet. May that flooding power drown their difficulties. Let their melancholia then be calmed to contentment by moonbeams of my bliss. Oh, I will be a tornado of laughter, lifting up and destroying superstructures of sorrow, sweeping over endless miles of suffering egos. I will churn up and blow away the troubles from all hearts. In lightning flashes of my mirth, I will swiftly expose to view the panorama of that beauty, so long obscured in the nocturnal darkness of unseeing, uncaring minds. Bless me, that by a single shaft of my light, the gathering gloom of ages, nurtured in the dark corners of human minds, be put to flight. Through thy grace, even one sudden flash of wisdom will dispel the accumulations of dark error, though it lasted countless millions of years. And from the autobiography of Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, this is 2 readings from this chapter. And the chapter is entitled, I Go to America. America, surely these people are Americans. This was my thought, as a panoramic vision of Western faces passed before my inward view. Immersed in meditation, I was sitting behind some dusty boxes in the storeroom of the Ranchi school. A private spot was difficult to find during those busy years with the youngsters. The vision continued. A vast multitude gazing at me intently, swept actor-like across the stage of consciousness. The storeroom door opened. As usual, one of the young lads had discovered my hiding place. Come here, Bamal, I cried gaily. I have news for you. The Lord is calling me to America. To America? The boy echoed my words in a tone that implied I had said, to the moon. Yes, I'm going forth to discover America like Columbus. He thought he had found India. Surely there was a karmic link between those 2 lands. Bamal scampered away. Soon the whole school was informed by the 2-legged newspaper. I summoned the bewildered faculty and gave the school into its charge. I know you will keep Lahiri Mahashaya's yoga ideals of education ever to the fore, I said. I shall write you frequently. God willing, someday I shall be back. Tears stood in my eyes as I cast the last look at the little boys and the sunny acres of Ranchi. A definite chapter in my life had now closed. I knew henceforth I would dwell in far lands. I entrained for Calcutta a few hours after my vision. The following day, I received an invitation to serve as a delegate from India to the International Congress of Religious Liberals in America. It was to convene that year in Boston under the auspices of the American Unitarian Association. My head in a whirl, I sought out Sri Yukteswar in Singapore. Guruji, I have just been invited to address a religious congress in America. Shall I go? All doors are open for you, Master replied simply. It is now or never. But sir, I said in dismay, what do I know about public speaking? Seldom have I given a lecture, and never in English. English or no English, your words on yoga shall be heard in the West. I laughed. Well, dear Guruji, I hardly think the Americans will learn Bengali. Please bless me with a push over the hurdles of the English language. And then Master became extremely concerned because all he had heard about the West was all of this concentration on materialism. And as he said, he didn't want to get lost in the fog of that material world. And so he sat down and began meditating. And it began in the morning, and he meditated hour after hour until he felt that his brain was going to split, because he wanted to make sure that he was going to be protected in this new chapter of his life. And we continued to read. So as he finished his meditation, at that moment, there came a knock outside the vestibule adjoining the Gupar Road room in which I was sitting. Opening the door, I saw a young man in the scanty garb of renunciate. He came in, closed the door behind him, and refusing my request to sit down, indicated with a gesture that he wished to talk to me while standing. He must be Babaji, I thought, dazed, because the man before me had the features of a younger Lahiri Mahashaya. He answered my thought. Yes, I am Babaji. He spoke melodiously in Hindi. Our Heavenly Father has heard your prayer. He commands me to tell you, follow the behests of your Guru and go to America. Fear not, you will be protected. After a vibrant pause, Babaji addressed me again. You are the one I have chosen to spread the message of Kriya Yoga in the West. Long ago, I met your Guru Yukteswar at a Kumbh Mela. I told him then that I would send you to him for training. I was speechless, choked with devotional awe at his presence, and deeply touched to hear from his own lips that he had guided me to Sri Yukteswar. I lay prostrate before the deathless Guru. He graciously lifted me from the floor, telling me many things about my life. He then gave me some personal instruction and uttered a few secret prophecies. Kriya Yoga, the scientific technique of God realization, he finally said, will ultimately spread in all lands and aid in harmonizing the nations through man's personal, transcendental perception of the infinite Father. With a gaze of majestic power, the Master electrified me by a glimpse of his cosmic consciousness. In a short while, he started toward the door. Do not try to follow me, he said. You will not be able to do so. Please, Babaji, don't go away, I cried repeatedly. Take me with you. Looking back, he replied, not now, some other time. Overcome by emotion, I disregarded his warning. As I tried to pursue him, I discovered that my feet were firmly rooted to the floor. From the door, Babaji gave me a last affectionate glance. He raised his hand by way of benediction and walked away, my eyes fixed on him longingly. After a few minutes, My feet were free. I sat down and went into deep meditation, unceasingly thanking God, not only for answering my prayer, but for blessing me by reading Bhagavad. My whole body seemed sanctified through the touch of the ancient, ever youthful master. Long had it been my burning desire to behold him. Until now, I have never recounted to anyone this story of my meeting with Babaji, holding it as the most sacred of my human experiences. I have hidden it in my heart. And so Sri Yukteswar, true of course to his promise, when Yogananda was there on the city of Sparta, heading to America, he was asked to make a speech. And so he was willing to do so. But when he got up to the podium, he found that he just could not put together a lecture in English. And for 10 minutes, that's a really long time, he just stood there. And the whole audience began to laugh, and knowing, of course, his predicament. And I'm sure they were laughing in a kindly way. And so he prayed to Sri Yukteswar that he needed help. Please help me. And Sri Yukteswar, then you can do it, speak. And he did. And so he spoke for about 45, 50 minutes. But he said that he hadn't been able to recall after the lecture what he had said, and he had to then discreetly go up to various ones that had been in attendance to ask them how perhaps they liked the speech. And they said that he spoke eloquently in English, and it was very inspiring. And so then he landed in Boston, 1920, in late September, and gave his speech, which then became a book, The Science of Religion, which was then distributed. And in those early 3 years, he lived very, very simply. And he didn't begin to go out for about 3 years upon his lectures outside the city. First was in Worcester, New York. And it was a very, very special time for him because he was learning to adapt. And this was a very big challenge for him, being raised in India all those years. He was a man now in his late 20s. And fortunate for him, he met Dr. Lewis and Mrs. Lewis and many other disciples who were deeply moved by his joy and by his love, and became disciples. And those stories are so very, very precious because for Dr. Lewis, for instance, he was a very conservative Bostonian, and he did not want to get food because he had been warned by his parents that, you know, some of these yogis, you have to beware of them. But he was completely won over by Master. And when Master gave him a personal interview, he asked Dr. Lewis for his unconditional love. And Dr. Lewis gave it to him. And during that meeting too, Master also said to him, Doctor, I'm asking you one thing, and that's don't avoid me. And Dr. Lewis said over the years, there were times when it was very, very difficult because Yogananda, again, in a matter of no time, was filling the largest halls in the land from coast to coast. And he had been telling Dr. Lewis that this was going to be the case. And Dr. Lewis kept on saying to him, again in those early 20s, when, Master, when will this happen? Perhaps to some degree not believing, because Master, as Dr. Lewis said, was almost living in a state of poverty in this little rooming house. And yet it did come to pass. And he was an absolute phenomenon, meeting with President Coolidge in the White House and so many, many dignitaries, where there were overflow crowds. Many, many cities, people couldn't come in. And he would give lecture after lecture in the same city, again, with these crowds clamoring to hear these truths and to hear about Kriya Yoga. And Dr. Lewis reminded us, and other disciples, that this was before the autobiography was published. And this was in 1946. And very interestingly, when Yogananda finished this book, and of course back in 1936, as we read in the autobiography of Yogi, he was going around to the different saints and collecting stories. And so in 1946, when the book was completed, he went to various publishing houses, and no one wanted it. It's a phenomenon to think of it now, because that book as a masterpiece is the most well-read of all spiritual autobiographies of all time. And finally, he went to a little publishing house, and they accepted his book. And then from there, it went on. Just a few years after the book was published in 1948 is when Swami Kriyananda met him. And the book, of course, completely changed his life. He, as the story is well known, after reading the book, he took a bus 4 days, 4 nights to California, praying deeply that Master would accept him as a disciple, although he knew nothing about yoga, meditation, karma, any of those things. And Yogananda said to him during that interview in Hollywood in California, he said, you know, I'm accepting fewer disciples now. Swami Kriyananda gulped and said, well, I can wait, sir. And he said, and Master said, no, you have good karma. Otherwise, I wouldn't accept you. And so he was accepted on the spot, which is very, very unusual. And there began his life as a disciple. And he said that during his later years, Yogananda would speak often about the importance of World Brotherhood colonies, that in time they would spread in all lands. And it's fascinating that Swami Kriyananda, at the tender age of 15, was already thinking about starting community. And so he was born to do that. And yet Yogananda, very interestingly, although he said to Swami Kriyananda, you have a great work to do, your work is writing, editing, lecturing, but he didn't say to him that your work was also to form the first World Brotherhood colonies. And then in time, of course, many more. And Swami explained that that was because at that time, and as the all-seeing Master knew, that this wouldn't be possible as a monk in self-realization fellowship, because that wasn't the focus at that time. He had to be separated from the organization, as he was in 1962 in a very dramatic way. And then 5 short years later, 1967, he was able to purchase the first property, the seclusion retreat, and then 2 years later, the community itself in 1969. And so the experience of these last 100 years, hard to believe, 1920 is when Master embarked from India. And it wasn't easy for him. He said that in future, when he comes back in a couple 100 years, then he'll gather a few of the disciples that were with him in this incarnation. And then he will retreat and spend time walking blissfully along the Ganges. And so, as Master had a very, very public life, then it's only fitting that in future he would be rewarded by time back in India, which of course was his first love, because he said, I love India, this is where I first found God. And as Swamiji said, my favorite city in all of the world, and he was a world traveler, was Calcutta, Master's home. And so the love that Master had for India and the love that Swami had for India. Swami spent time in India in the late 1950s for about 4 years. And it was very, very precious time for him, very, very precious. And he didn't think that he would be able to come back. And it was a long time. He finally was able to get back to India in the early 70s. And then, really, quite extraordinarily, as a man in his mid-70s, he then came back to India to start the last great work that Master had prophesied for him and told him that this was the work that he needed to do. Initially, when Master said to Swami, "You have a great work to do," Swami said, "I don't want to do a great work." He just wanted to be a hermit. He just wanted to be off there in the sidelines. But Master said, "Well, you better like it, because that's what you are going to have to do." And that indeed was his job. He was a monk. He was made by Master in charge of the monks, even though he was only 22 years old. And then 23 when he was in charge of the monks. He had only been there for a year. And so right from the beginning, Master gave him some very important responsibility and preparation for the great work that he was going to do. As he said, if Walter, as he used to call, and Swami said, I never understood why he would call me Walter. His last name was Walters, James Donald Walters, but Master very affectionately would call him Walter. And he said, if Walter had come in the early years, when Master had first come to the States, we would have reached millions. And I like to reflect that as it worked out, Swami, with the great work that he was able to do, did reach millions, primarily through his writings, and of course his lectures as well reached thousands more. And so the experience of these last 100 years have been absolutely amazing, in that in the beginning, yoga was not that well known. Swami Tirtha had come, and Vivekananda had come to pave the way for Master, but still so much more was needed to awaken love in the heart of the Americans and in time, the entire world. And Master said he didn't come here to America to Indianize the Western culture. He said he wanted to bring the best of both cultures. And he said in time, Indian America would lead the world. And so I find it fascinating that here we are, Master's 100th anniversary, in this lockdown, this seclusion that everyone, to whatever degree, is having in the world. And isn't it absolutely fascinating that even more people are being reached when in March we had 4 locations around Bangalore, being a big city and so forth, teaching there. And all of a sudden, we had to temporarily close all the centers down. And in 1 week, we were broadcasting, as of course many of the centers here in India and worldwide were doing. And we didn't know what would this be like? Would people's lives be able to be touched in this way? Because of course we all love seeing one another in person. And we have found in a very short time, and it continues very many months now, after the first experience in March, that again, the classes are even bigger than ever before. And so really, Divine Mother's lesson that she has for all of us, whether we are spiritual people or not, each one has to go inside and figure out, as we like to say in Ananda, what's trying to happen here? We need to go inside and do what we can, especially as devotees, with those with an inner life, to dive deep so that we can be instruments for the great ones in order to spread this work. Because there's many, of course, millions really, that are suffering and are clueless as to what to do in their lives now. Their jobs are lost. How can they feed their families? All of these things, tremendous hardships. And yet, as yogis, we understand more and more how important it is to get out of the way, let go and let God. That's what's important in order to be instruments for the divine. And so Yogananda's impact, and it will be felt, as Swamiji Kriyananda said, for many, many centuries, many centuries from now. His impact has been so tremendous. So words can't even say. People understanding at last that they have the means through the practice of Kriya Yoga to release these karmas that are dictating our thoughts and our feelings and our activities, to be free of this karma, to be free ultimately of ego, to merge back into the light from where we've come. And we have a divine shepherd, as all the great saints are, to show us the way. And of course, in the beginning, even though maybe we've been on the path for some time, we can be, as Yogananda described, like birds in a cage, accustomed to these surroundings and a little afraid of experiencing that omnipresent bliss, which is truly our state as children of God. And yet, with the technique of Kriya, which Yogananda called, of course, the airplane route to freedom, and with so many blessings and Swamiji and the spiritual family, we do have that key in our hand, as he said, to propel us into the light and to be done with this Leela forever. And so let's spend time in this precious year, 2020, in broadcasting the light. There's been many ideas of what we can do, and we'll be meeting with people and so forth. One thing we'll be doing is, we thought for 100 years, why don't we send out 100 autobiography of a yogi? And our Dr. Anand had the idea of, yes, let's do that. And let's send some of these copies to the intensive wards, where people are, the doctors, the nurses, and so on, are there on the front lines, administering people with the COVID disease. And so there'll be, again, lots of ideas, as I've said, and we're looking forward to having you share as we broadcast this blessing, this celebration. God bless India. As we've said many times, India is the guru of the world. Of course, we believe that to the very core of our soul. But look what you all have done by giving Yogananda to America, to the West, to the world. And after 100 years, how many people have it changed? And that vision that he had in Ranchi in the storeroom, he saw the various faces and he recognized them when he came to America. And he saw that there were many potential saints that were awakening. And so, God bless you all as we celebrate this 100th year of Master coming to America and flooding this world with his blessings, as all great avatars are able to do. And so now, we'll have a song.
Many years I have longed for your sight. Bathe the darkness with tears of devotion. Offered candles in prayer to you. years I have longed for your sight. Make the darkness with tears of devotion, offered candles in prayer to your light. How much longer, friend, must I cry your name? I am yours, ever yours. Will you come?
Lord, I've called you my Lord. Long I've called you. Many years I have longed for your sight. Bathe the darkness with tears of devotion, offered candles in prayer to your light. How much longer, friend, must I cry your name? I am yours, ever yours. Will you come?
And now we'll have our Aarti.
Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine.
And now send you some of our blessings. Be filled with light, joy, and love to share with all.
Oh.
Let's close with healing prayers, drawing to mind those you'd like to pray for. See them bathed in healing light. Send blessings to our loved ones, friends, colleagues, to all those on our healing prayer lists, to all those in special need throughout the world. Let's pray, Divine Mother, Thou art omnipresent. Thou art in all thy children. Manifest thy healing presence in their bodies, mind, and soul. Oh.